Welcome to the Power in Motion podcast, the show for women who want to develop a kinder relationship with their body so you can feel healthy, happy, and confident without restricting food, doing torturous exercise, or constantly worrying about the number on the scale. I'm your host, Kim Hagel, size-inclusive fitness specialist and certified non-diet health and life coach specializing in body image. This podcast is here to provide weight-neutral, health at every size aligned information and coaching on sustainable habits and mindset shifts so you can feel your very best in the body you have right now. Let's lace up our runners and go for a walk while we chat. Well, hey there. Welcome back to the Joyful Movement Show. This is the 7th installment in our series on simplifying wellness. And on today's episode, I wanted to share with you the process that I went through in transitioning from being this health-obsessed person who worried about every morsel of food I ate and never knew if I was doing enough in terms of the health practices I was engaging in, whether I was exercising enough or eating right and measuring my health on the bathroom scale, never really feeling like I was attaining health and always feeling like there was something I was missing and something more I needed to do. So I want to take you through the process that I went through to go from being that person to the person I am today, who's totally confident, both in my body and in my appearance, in myself and in my health choices, who can now eat anywhere and not worry about whether the food is going to suit my dietary needs, who can whip up a meal at the last minute and not worry about whether it's healthy enough or the right balance of calories and macros, who can move her body in ways that are joyful and fun, and who can actually skip a week of working out and not beat up on herself and not call myself names and think that I'm a failure. I'm now a person who hasn't stepped on the scale in 3 years and has no desire to, no care at all with what that number is, because I know that I'm healthy. I know that I'm doing the best that I can, that what I'm doing is working for me. And in reflecting on this, it's sometimes easy for me to forget that process that I went through because it has been 3 years and it now seems so easy. Like, this is just my way of life. I'm so far away from that previous version of myself that sometimes I forget that I even was that way until little memories pop up and I remember how hard it used to be, how obsessed I used to feel. So it's easy for me to forget that there was this whole process and that there was work I went through to go from A to B. It certainly wasn't like I woke up one morning and my whole life was changed and I just thought differently and I felt differently and I was instantly confident. No. There was this whole process of becoming this version of myself. And I want to take you today through that and share with you a little bit about what that process looked like. Now, the process started for me, as it does with pretty well everyone I've worked with in my work, with a big aha moment. In fact, I recently had a new client who reached out to me for coaching. She had quit dieting about 7 years ago, and she thought she had everything under control in air quotes. She felt like she had her life together. But then coming out of this period of COVID and being very isolated, and now she's starting to see people more, her aha moment came when she started planning a birthday party for her spouse and realized she was going to have to see a bunch of people that she had either never met before or hadn't seen in a few years. And she was very afraid of how they were going to judge her body and what they might think of her, the assumptions that they might make when they looked at her body, having not seen her for a few years. So she downloaded the Weight Watchers app. She paid for Weight Watchers. And like I said, she hasn't dieted for 7 years. And life has changed a lot for her since she was that version of herself. She's since had 3 kids. She's a busy mom, working. She's got a husband who's self-employed. Like, life has changed in a big way. And she realized very quickly after downloading this Weight Watchers app and she tried to do it for literally half a day, that it was just far too overwhelming and something that she just couldn't possibly put the time and attention into. It was not sustainable, but she knew she needed to do something. She felt so anxious and so stressed about this upcoming party and how she was going to feel with all of these new people and the potential thoughts they might have about her body. That was her aha moment. That's what caused her to reach out to me. My aha moment was similar. Mine happened about 4 years ago when my youngest son was about a year old. And as many of you know, he has Down syndrome. So he has some needs and requires a fair bit of our attention. I was working outside the home at that time in an almost full-time capacity, and I had not yet healed my relationship with my body, and I felt the pressure to lose the baby weight. So I did what the previous version of me knew. I took up running and I changed the way that I ate. Now, having tried so many lifestyle plans in the past that didn't work, I thought I better jump on the bandwagon, the one that everybody was talking about at the time and was supposed to be the miracle thing to lose weight and feel great and never struggle ever again. So I jumped on the keto bandwagon. And I was also vegetarian at the time. So I tried the vegetarian keto plan for about 2 weeks, which when I look back, I'm really impressed that I actually maintained that for as long as I did. I was miserable. I was yelling at everybody in my house. I had no patience. I was exhausted. I felt like I was going to faint all day long, and my body hurt. I had hurt my back from running because, of course, I hadn't properly rehabilitated my core before I just started hitting the trails. And that was my aha moment. I knew I couldn't do this. I knew that my attention needed to be focused on things that really mattered. I didn't have the mental capacity to put so much thought and effort into my diet and exercise. I knew that I couldn't devote that level of perfection to trying to shrink my body anymore. But I didn't know what to do next. And that's what generally happens for the people I meet, is they know that what they're doing isn't working, it's not sustainable, they're not enjoying it, but they don't know what to do next. So that's why I want to share that process with you today so that you know exactly what needs to happen next. So for me, I was very lucky in this period of feeling so lost and overwhelmed and not knowing what to do next. The universe provided exactly what I needed at just the right time. I happened upon an ad on Facebook for the woman who is now my coach, my mentor, offering non-diet intake forms for clients. Her ad was all about approaching your nutrition and health practice from a non-diet perspective. And I was like, what is this? What is the non-diet intake forms for your health practice? So I clicked on the ad, downloaded the forms, found out she had a podcast, started listening, and realized, OMG, this is what I didn't know that I didn't know. There is this whole world out there of health beyond the scale, of feeling good in and about your body without having to conform to some arbitrary size. Then, man, my mind was blown. So that was a turning point for me. I jumped in with both feet. I learned everything that I could from her through her podcast, through her website, her free content on social media. And it was only a matter of probably, a week or so that I realized she had a program starting. So I clicked the button, booked the discovery call. I still wasn't sure if her program was the right fit for me. I didn't know if I was ready for that, but I was brave enough to book the call. And after I talked to her, I knew that that was the path I needed to go down. And she led me through the process of what I'm about to share with you today that helped me transition from being that person, that previous version of myself that was so obsessed about health, to who I am today, fully confident and comfortable in my now body. So in reflecting back on that process, I realized there were 3 distinct parts, 3 steps, if you will. The first was to challenge and unlearn everything I thought I knew about food, exercise, health, and weight. The second step was to embrace body neutrality, learning to respect and care for my body as it was. And the third was to build trust in myself to make decisions that are right for me, to become the authority over my own health. So let's dig in and explore each one. Like I say, the first step was to challenge and unlearn everything that I thought I knew. All the rules, all the shoulds, all the rights and wrongs, all the things that I believed about health, nutrition, exercise, weight, bodies, all of it. When I first learned about health at every size and the non-diet approach, not going to lie, I felt very confused and overwhelmed. Everything I was learning made so much sense, but so starkly disagreed with everything I previously thought was truth. And maybe you've experienced that too as you've been listening to this podcast or digging into other resources about health at every size. We call that cognitive dissonance, where our brain is caught between two sets of conflicting belief systems. And it's entirely normal, and it's a really important part of this process because it means that you have to sift through all of those beliefs on both sides and analyze them and critically decide which ones feel most aligned for you, and then consciously choose how you want to think going forward. So that process started by gradually taking inventory of all the messages that I've internalized. And at the beginning of this, you don't worry about whether they're right or wrong. You just get all those beliefs out on paper to build your awareness of what it is that you have been believing. And then you start to pick each one apart. Notice how believing that thought makes you feel and how it influences your behavior. And asking, is believing this giving me the result that I want? And then evaluating, is this belief even true? Is it always true? Is it sometimes true? Is it not true at all? Is something else possible? Or even if it is true, is it serving me to believe this? What would be a more helpful way to think about this situation? I learned that I didn't have to believe everything that I think. That was a big turning point. I believed up until that point that the things in my brain were facts. What I learned is to see the thoughts that are in my brain as just that, as neutral, as sentences that are present, and they are optional to believe. I didn't have to believe everything that I thought. And just because something is in my brain doesn't mean that it's true. And it doesn't mean anything about me because I've thought it. I had a lot of judgment about certain things that I thought. I thought that I was wrong for even thinking certain things. So I had to meet myself with a lot of self-compassion and have a very curious mind and be willing to dig into these thoughts and explore them. And we can only do that when we don't judge ourselves for having the thought. That awareness of what I was thinking, that inventory of all the things that were in my brain, gave me power to choose the way that I want to think, to choose thoughts that are going to be more productive for me, that are going to get me closer to the results that I want. I learned to train my brain to think thoughts that are more aligned with my values and my goals. I'll give an example of this because that sounds very conceptual and intellectual. So I'll give you a concrete example so that this will make more sense. I had a very firm belief back in the day that it was my moral obligation, my duty, if you will, to be healthy. Like I believed that if you were a responsible human, health should be your top priority. That was a value that I held. And upholding that value meant that I must eat the best, in air quotes, quality foods, clean foods, and I had to exercise at high intensity and push my body no matter what. Like to me, those were the non-negotiable things that you had to do to stay healthy. So there was a lot in that statement that I had to pick apart. First was noticing and becoming aware of how holding on to that belief was keeping me obsessed over food and exercise, and acknowledging that my relationship with food and exercise was actually disordered, that it wasn't healthy. I had to look objectively at what was going on in my brain and in my body. I was constantly injured. I was stressed out. I was preoccupied. I wasn't happy. I was missing periods, and there were other things physically. My hair was falling out. Like I had to pick that all apart, and I had to look at how I was defining health and question, is this really healthy? Is it true that eating, quote, perfectly and exercising this much is the way to attain health? Is health really just measured on the scale or by your body fat percentage? Is it even true that we must be pursuing health at all times? Why did I think that made me morally superior? So there was a lot, and I'm telling you, it was confronting and challenging at times. I had my whole identity wrapped up in being this so-called role model of health. So it was hella scary to consider letting that identity go, because who was I if not that person? But I held a lot of compassion for myself. I was curious, and I had to trust that there was something better on the other side of this, because I knew that this current way of thinking wasn't serving me anymore. The second step, the second part of the process, was to embrace body neutrality and learning to respect my body as it was, regardless of the size of it. So after exploring all of these thoughts I had about health and food and bodies and exercise and weight, I learned that all of my struggles stemmed from a core dislike of my body, a core belief that my body was wrong and needed to be fixed. I held a very common thought error that once my body was perfect, everything in my life would be better. I thought that I would approve of myself, I'd feel confident, I'd have perfect health, I'd be happy all the time, and all my relationships would be better too. So I applied that same unlearning process to all of my thoughts and beliefs about weight and body image as well. And I learned to view my body not as an object to be admired or as an outward expression of my worth, but rather as simply the vessel I live in that allows me to experience life. My body is simply a part of me, but it doesn't define me. It's not who I am. I started to shift my focus to being grateful for all the things that my body allows me to do, all the ways that my body supports me, and even all of the ways that it had been there for me, even when I was treating it so cruelly. And that really allowed me to engage with my body in a much more kind and respectful way, where eating and movement became more about taking care of this container that I live in and supporting it to feel and function its best, rather than criticizing, shaming, and always trying to force my body to be different. I learned to focus my thoughts on who I am outside of my body. I learned to separate my worth from my appearance. With practice, I learned to love and accept myself unconditionally, knowing that I don't have to love how I look to be worthy of kindness or respect, especially from myself. So even if I don't love how my body looks, even if my body is injured or it's not in top physical shape, even if it's not 100% healthy, my body does so much for me, and it is worthy of kindness and respect. I am still a valuable human, even if I don't have a perfect looking or perfectly functioning body. I realized that my body was never the problem. The only problem, if you will, is the fact that I believed my body was wrong in the first place. And the last step, once I'd unlearned all those unhelpful thoughts and embraced body neutrality, was to build up my self-trust in my decisions. I learned to become the authority of my own health. I developed belief in myself that I could trust myself to make decisions that were in my own best interest, even if they were countercultural, even if they disagreed with wellness culture or with what my doctor said or my husband or Weight Watchers or social media or the fitness industry. I learned that I got to decide what works best for me. I got to decide what health meant to me. And I have totally redefined health on my own terms, trusting that it's highly individual and I get to decide what health means to me. I opened my mind to consider that health was so much more than a size or a shape or even just the lack of disease, that it was more than the foods I put into my mouth or the way that I move my body, and embraced that it was this whole state of well-being that really had more to do with my mental and emotional wellness than the physical. I've learned that when I take care of those needs, my mental and emotional needs, and I feel well on the inside, then the way that I care for my physical body just follows suit. I don't have to force myself to eat well or exercise. I naturally want to do that when I feel good mentally and emotionally. And as a result, I now eat intuitively. I eat a healthy balance of foods, and I never worry about whether it's right or wrong. I never feel deprived. I rarely binge. Funny story, just a little side note here. I used to think that I had reactive hypoglycemia because I was always shaky and jittery and hangry before meals. Like, I knew when my meal times were, and if I had to delay eating for whatever reason, it was not good. Turns out I was just under eating. I never feel hangry anymore because I eat when I'm hungry instead of waiting for the designated meal time, and I eat enough to last until the next meal instead of eating the prescribed amount of calories. I trust myself to know what the right amount of food is for me and when I need to eat. I move my body consistently. Sometimes I work hard and sometimes I don't. Like I said, there's some weeks where I don't work out at all, but I feel no guilt for that. I feel no fear that I'll have to start all over or that I've lost everything I've worked for. I fully trust that when I have a week like that, that just must be what my body needed. And my body will ask for more movement when it needs that too. I feel emotionally and mentally well. My stress levels are reduced. I'm a lot more patient with my family members. I'm a lot more in tune with my emotions and comfortable asking for what I need instead of turning to food or over-exercising to cope. I'm a lot less perfectionistic. I have a lot more fun. I actually enjoy my life a whole lot more, and I'm able to focus on things that matter to me. I'm able to contribute to the world in a meaningful way instead of my whole life revolving around managing my body. And like I said, I haven't stepped on a scale in more than 3 years. I know that my body has changed. I have gained weight, but I have no desire or no need to know how much because I know that this is what healthy feels like to me. There is no information that that scale can provide that will be valuable to my life or my decision making. I fully trust that I'm on the right track to health for me. And I also trust that if I develop a health concern, that I won't blame myself or my weight because I know that I have done the best I could with the time, energy, and resources that I have. I have also challenged all of my beliefs about health and health conditions now, and I feel neutral about health and disease. I know that sometimes things happen. I know that we can develop illness or health conditions, and it doesn't mean it's my fault or that I caused it. I trust in my inherent worth regardless of my health status, and I know that I will always have my own back and be kind and compassionate to myself no matter what is going on in my physical body. So that, my friends, is the process that I use to heal my own life and change my own relationship with health and wellness, food and exercise, and reach this place where I really feel my very, very best in and about my body. And that's also the process that I use to take my clients. We go through those same steps of challenging and unlearning, unpacking what you've believed, picking it all apart, building up body respect, embracing body neutrality, and learning to accept your body as it is and treating it with kindness and compassion, no matter what it looks like or what the health status of it is. And then from there, building up your capacity to trust yourself to make good decisions. And most definitely, I had help along the way. I worked with a coach. I still work with that same coach that I hired 3 years ago. And I really, really appreciate that relationship because my coach can see what my brain is doing, which isn't always clear to me. A coach can read between those lines and hear the hidden messages, bring them to the surface, and gently hold space for you and make it safe for you to explore those things that we don't necessarily want to see. And that's why so many people struggle when they're on their own, when they're trying to do this work by themselves, because those thoughts and beliefs can be subconscious and they can be uncomfortable. And when we feel discomfort, the natural instinct is to stop and distract and do something different. What's really happening is it feels threatening. So we just don't keep going, right? We might read the book, close the book, and declare, this just isn't for me. This just doesn't work. When you work with a coach, they don't allow you to walk away from things that are confronting. They're going to hold that space for you, gently call you out, and encourage you to stay the course in a very safe and loving way. The way I look at coaching is like having a trail guide. As a hiker, I love this analogy, especially as a hiker who's very good at getting lost. Trying to do this work of transformation on your own is like trying to hike an unmarked trail all by yourself. On the other hand, having a coach go through the process with you is helpful because the coach has been down that path themselves. They've studied the trail and they've taken other people through it. They've come to know the trail very, very well, like the back of their hand. They know the clearest and most direct path from A to B. They're also familiar with all the obstacles that come up along the way. They know where the roots and the rocks are. In other words, they know the points in the journey where you're going to get tripped up. And their job is to point those out for you so that you don't trip and fall flat in your face or turn around and go back. Your trail guide also knows that there's going to be some dark parts on the trail where you can't seem to see past the trees, or where there's mud and you just feel like you're slogging through muck. They know what's on the other side of the darkness, on the other side of the muck. They know that that muck is right before the big expanse of sunshine, the most beautiful part of the trail. In other words, your breakthrough. So your coach is there walking beside you step by step with their flashlight until you come out the other side. And of course, I would love to be that person for you. If you've had your aha moment and you're realizing that what you're doing just isn't working for you anymore, but you don't know what the next step is, I know the way, I know the process, and I know how the brain works. And I can shine a light on all of those things that are dark and mucky to you and are keeping you stuck. All you got to do is be willing. So book that call. Let's meet. Let's chat. See how we get along. I promise by the end of the call, you'll know exactly what your next step is to get the result you want, and you will have full autonomy to decide whether you go through the process yourself or whether you want to invest in coaching. I will be cheering you on either way. All right, that is it for today. I will see you back here next week where we're going to tie a pretty bow on this series on simplifying wellness. In the meantime, I hope that you have a great week. Get out there and enjoy some joyful movement, and we'll see you on the next episode. Thanks for tuning into the Power in Motion podcast today. If you love what you're learning here, then I invite you to take the next step of embodying these concepts into your own life so that you can live your healthiest, happiest life and never again feel held back by your body. Coaching is the fastest, most efficient pathway to taking what you know in your head to actually applying it and seeing results. Whether you're looking to make changes around movement, food, body image, or all three, I'm here to help you nurture a kind, respectful, and trusting relationship with your body so you can feel your very best. Click the link in the show notes to book a free consultation, and together we'll uncover what's getting in the way of you having the results you want. You'll leave this call knowing exactly what you need to work on, and together we'll explore whether one of my coaching offers is a good fit for you. I can't wait to meet you.